everyone, and welcome to today's program. This episode is brought to you by the Buddha's Action Association of Australia, sharing the profound Dharma. Today, I'd like to invite you all to play detective with me. We are going to dive deep into a very special piece of material. At its core is a piece of wisdom from the Shurangama Sutra, a text that has been passed down for thousands of years. You might wonder, in this age of AI, quantum mechanics, and space exploration, what could an ancient scripture possibly have to do with us? In fact, it proposes what might be the most subversive viewpoint in history. The sutra mentions a metaphor. If a person stares fixedly at a clear sky for a long time, their eyes will grow tired and fatigued. Then they will start to see flowers in the sky, hallucinations that don't actually exist in the empty space. The sutra then drops a bombshell. The entire material world we perceive, what Buddhism calls the form aggregate, rupa, including the mountains, rivers, the earth, and even your body and mind, is created in the exact same way as those stared-out phantom flowers. This idea is truly hair-raising. If the world is indeed created, then who is the creator? And what is the modus operandi? Before we officially begin our investigation, I should mention that this material borrows concepts from modern physics to help us understand this profound reality. Chapter 1: Consciousness Collapse and the One-Thought Wave. The material suggests that not just our bodies, but tables, chairs, airplanes, and artillery, the entire physical world, are stared out by us. This sounds like those manifestation or law of attraction theories. But you might ask, I think about adding a few zeros to my bank account every day, so why hasn't it happened? This is because the creation mentioned here doesn't mean a single stray thought can conjure something out of thin air. It speaks of a much more fundamental level. The material uses a term called the one-thought wave. Think of every thought we have, whether good or evil, wise or foolish, as something that generates an extremely subtle vibration on a fundamental level of reality, much like the ripples created when a stone is dropped into water. Here we can borrow the famous observer effect from quantum physics. Simply put, in the microscopic world, a particle exists as a wave of probability before it is measured, observed. Once we measure it, the act itself forces it to instantly collapse from infinite possibilities into a definite state. The material suggests that our consciousness is like this act of measurement. It collapses infinite possibilities into the concrete, fixed reality we experience. Countless thoughts generate countless waves, which collapse into countless particles, the basic structures of all things. This is why the material says the world is created by God, and that God is the power of our own consciousness. Every one of your delusive thoughts is, in fact, an act of creation. Then why do billions of people see the same table instead of a chaotic cloud of particles? This involves a deeper concept called shared karma, or collective consciousness. Our reality is not determined by your thoughts alone, but is accumulated from the common, similar thoughts of countless sentient beings over vast eons. We all agree that this table is made of wood and is solid. Therefore, for all of us, it is wood and it is solid. It is a massive, stable consensus field. This explains why it's hard to just think more zeros into your bank account. It contradicts the collective consensus of how money operates for the vast majority of people. The individual is, in fact, performing a tiny bit of creation on a massive canvas of collective subconsciousness. Chapter 2: Our Alien Senses. If the world is woven by us collectively, why would we weave traffic jams, bills, and all kinds of suffering? Does our collective subconscious have masochistic tendencies? This question brings us to the next core point. The reason we create a world full of suffering is likely that the equipment we use to perceive and create the world is itself flawed. The material uses a very strong word, pathological. Most of us feel our senses are normal, but is that true? The material gives several examples. People with high blood pressure often see a blurry halo around lights. Those in the early stages of cataracts see small dark shadows floating before their eyes. This reminds me of my experience with astigmatism. Before I got glasses, I always thought streetlights at night naturally looked like radiating starfish. It wasn't until I put on glasses that I discovered, with shock, that a street light could be a clean, sharp point. At that moment, I realized the world I had seen for decades was distorted, yet I had no idea. I thought that was normal. Even for those of us with normal vision, we cannot see infrared, ultraviolet, or X-rays. Our ears cannot hear the ultrasound used by dolphins or the infrasound of elephants. From this perspective, our six roots, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind, can only receive an extremely narrow frequency of reality. Our normalcy is actually a limitation. Our judgments, based on this flawed and incomplete information, are built on a wrong foundation from the very start. Chapter 3. The End's Perspective and Humility. Regarding this limitation of perception, the material provides an example that makes one completely rethink their place in the universe. The comparison between humans and ants. Imagine crouching on the ground to say hi to a passing ant. To you, it's just a simple sound. But to the ant, what is it experiencing? Your voice might be a thunderclap that shakes the earth. Your breath might be a powerful tornado carrying carbon dioxide and the scent of your lunch. An ant scientist might record this as a tropical cyclone with a peculiar odor, never realizing it was simply the breath of a massive living being. This metaphor makes us reflect. Our so-called scientific breakthroughs, international disputes, or personal heartbreaks from the view of a higher dimensional being. Would this look like ants fighting over a breadcrumb? Tiny and somewhat absurd. But the material also offers a counter-reminder. Never look down on the ant. An ant's strength is incredible, capable of lifting hundreds of times its own weight. Some species can drag objects 700 times their own weight. Furthermore, ant societies possess high organizational discipline and clear division of labor without complaint, qualities that far surpass many human societies. This forces us to step out of our self-centered center of the universe perspective. We must see both the insignificance of our own troubles and the greatness of other life forms. Chapter 4. Star Staring. Follow the laws. Finally, the most critical question: how do we escape this cycle of suffering that we ourselves created? The answer lies in the very first metaphor: stop staring. This staring doesn't refer to the physical movement of the eyes, but an internal state of mind, what the material calls delusive clinging and emotional consciousness. In plain language, it is the strong subjective will of I like, I hate, I think it should be this way, or it must go my way. As long as we act with this mindset, we will inevitably hit walls and experience pain and friction. It sounds paradoxical. The solution is not to use a stronger will to change the world, but rather to let go of that will. But this doesn't mean becoming a lifeless block of wood. The wisdom in the material is exactly the opposite. Wisdom is acting entirely according to rules, principles, and formulas, without mixing in one's irrational likes and dislikes. Take cooking, for example. Cooking has its rules. Add the right amount of water and use the right heat. If you find adding water too troublesome, or think using a single matchstick to slowly toast the rice is more stylish, the rice will never cook. Suffering comes from using your delusions to fight against the rules of cooking. Life is like sailing. You can go with the wind and current, or against them. If you want to reach your destination easily, you should learn the patterns of the wind and water and align with them. If you insist on sailing against the wind, you will only exhaust yourself. Therefore, this is not passive. It is the highest form of proactivity, because you finally stop your internal friction and apply all your energy in the right direction. Conclusion: a practice in shifting perspective. Today, we started with an ancient scripture and unveiled a profound secret. The conclusion is actually very close to daily life. The world we experience is largely a collective projection of our thoughts, and our suffering often comes not from the events themselves, but from our insistence on using our likes and dislikes to fight the objective laws of reality. We will continue to stare intensely, creating those phantom flowers of distress in your mind. Or are you willing to practice letting go of that stubborn ego and try to observe and follow the rules behind all things? Finally, I'll leave you with a mental exercise you can take anywhere. Next time you are trapped in strong emotions or feel overwhelmed by a situation, try to pause for a moment and ask yourself, if I were an ant, how would I see this? If a higher dimensional being were looking at me right now, what would they see? That shift in perspective might just be the first step in stopping the staring and letting the phantom flowers in your heart wither away on their own. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next episode.